Hi guys, it's Drew Brashler. I have been wanting to do a case study with setting up the Behringer X32 with a kind of a mobile group, someone that's going out somewhere, setting up all their mics, their monitors, everything like that, and doing a show. So I had one guy, his name is Jerry, and he approached me and said, "Hey, I needed some help getting my board set up." So I figured I'd just make this a case study, and so I had Jerry kind of send me his list of all the specific things that he needs for his system. So looks like we have 5 vocals. So vocal 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. I'm not going to put their names in here just because I'll let him do that. We have a Mox 8 left. This is a keyboard, left and right. We have an ANX1. This is a mono, is coming out of this keyboard. Another keyboard, Roland Juno. That one is also mono. And then we also have a Mox 6, which is a mono. A lead guitar, rhythm guitar, both of those are mic'd. Acoustic guitar, that is a DI box. A bass guitar, also DI. And then we have a pretty big drum set. We have a kick, snare, tom 1, tom 2, tom 3, floor tom 1, floor tom 2, and then 2 overheads. The entire system is the Behringer X32, as you guys can obviously see. And then the mains are the QSC KW153s. This is a pretty big box. It has a very good frequency range, very low into the low end. So you almost don't even need subs on this, but it's a good thing that they have subs that they're going to be using. The subs that they're using are the KSC KW181s. So the way that the QSC works is you can plug in your mains right off the board coming into this, and then you can select a switch on the back of these QSC speakers to do external sub, and then it will actually roll off the low end on the mains at 100 hertz, and so then the subs can come in and cover the lower than 100 hertz. The way that I'm going to set this up is have the crossover internal on the X32 using the crossover filters that are available on the matrix section. But I'm actually going to lower the crossover frequency down to 90 hertz. And the reason that I'm going to be doing this is I'm wanting the subs to really be the impact for the kick drum and the really low end notes of the bass, and then we'll rely on the mains having that really good frequency spectrum to cover kind of the rest of the stuff. As far as monitors go, they have 5 total monitors. 3 of them are powered Mackie monitors, and then they have 2 channels of non-powered or passive speakers through an amp. So let's go ahead and hop right into the X32 edit. I've went ahead and already titled all of this stuff just so you guys didn't really have to watch me do mindless typing. So we have our 5 vocal mics, and I like to color code everything. It makes it look like a Christmas tree, but it's really easy to locate something with colors, especially when it's dark and you're trying to look at the little scribble strips and it's kind of hard to find stuff and whatnot. Color really makes it easy. So I generally keep the vocal mics white. Keyboards, I usually have either purple or yellow. Guitars, green. Bass is red. And then my drums are dark blue. I saved the light blue to be anything like AV related or an important mic, like a talkback mic, or an announcement mic. Sorry, not talkback. So I keep the light blue for that type of stuff. So I am wanting to set up the board so that we are putting all of these instruments through subgroups. That was one of the things that he was requesting. So I've went ahead and made stereo subgroups because all of this system is stereo, so it'd be silly to have all of your microphones going into a mono subgroup and then you all of a sudden lose all your stereo capability. So we're having 3 different groups. So we have our vocal groups right here. So this is our vocal left and right. We have our music group, which is 9 and 10, left and right. And then we have our drums left and right. Now I have gone through and linked these by selecting one of the bus numbers and going up here and pressing link. And then do you want to link bus 7 and 8? And then you press yes. When you do that, it automatically pans one to the left and one to the right. So that's an important distinction to know. on that. And so you can see that the on the even numbers that it's panned to the right, and the odd numbers it's panned to the left. We also have our 5 monitors here. So we have our powered monitor 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Now, with any stage monitors, we're wanting to roll off the low end on the EQ. So one thing you can see up here that I've done, you select one of the channels and then press EQ. I've actually taken the low cut on the low end and rolled it off at about 100. If you don't do this, you can tend to have a lot of low end energy up on the stage rather than coming from the subwoofers, and then it just gets into this big muddy mush. Also, by limiting the low end on your monitors, it retains more of the power to be used in the mids and highs. Just makes the speaker sound a lot better. Since you're not really relying on low end in the monitors, unless you're a bassist and you have like a sub that you're sitting on or something like that, generally we want to roll off the low end on the monitors. So I've done that for all 5 of the monitors. And to get to the low cut, we press mode, and then we can change this selector to be the low cut. Then they also requested to have 2 reverbs, a vocal reverb and an instrument reverb. So let's go ahead and start assigning first the DCAs to the channels, and then we're also going to then assign the channels to the groups, and we'll get this whole board set up. So we will start with the 5 vocal mics. These mics are going to be going into DCA 1, which is our vocal DCA. So we'll go ahead and select DCA 1, and then that will start flashing. And then we can go press the 5 different microphones. To do this on the actual board, we would press and hold the select button of the DCA 1, and then press all the different select buttons of the microphones that we're wanting to add into this. So once we're done with that, we're going to press DCA 2, which is keys. This is Jerry's keyboards. So we'll go select his keyboards there. And then we have keys. This is the second keyboard player. He also has 2 keyboards. So we'll do that. And then we have our 3 guitars. And then a bass guitar. And then DCA 6 I'm not using. They can use it if they want to for something. Say they wanted to have a lead vocal DCA and then a background vocal DCA. They could move all these over one spot and do it that way. With the drums, I have 1 DCA for the kick and 1 DCA for the rest of the drums. So we'll go over to channel 17 through 32 and assign the kick to DCA 7. And then all the rest of the drums to DCA 8. Very good. So, next thing, and unfortunately, I already had this saved, so we're just going to reset the EQ so that you can see this kind of from scratch. So, with the matrix section is the next thing that I'm wanting to set up, and then we'll get back to the groups and whatnot that are feeding the left-right. With the matrix section, I'm wanting to have the board send out the left-right into the matrix, and then the left is going to be on matrix 1, the right is going to be on matrix 2, and then the subs are going to be mono on matrix 3. Now, the reason for having mono subs is the really low frequency or VLF frequencies don't really have a direction that they come from that our brains can really detect very well. It's pretty much everything in that spectrum of frequency is omnidirectional, so it's really hard to pinpoint where it's coming from. So having mono subs is completely fine, and it actually will do better in most cases than trying to do a stereo sub. Even though the subs are spaced on either side of the stage in their instance, it's better just run both of those as one sub. So with our mains, we will want to go ahead and link matrix 1 and matrix 2. And to do that, we'll go to our config, and we will press link. And then it will ask you, do you want to link matrix 1, 2? You'll press yes. And then matrix 3 is just by itself. So once we have done that, we will go into our routing, into our analog out, and assign where we are having these go out to. So the stock configuration of the board has 15 and 16 being the left and right. So we will go ahead and click output 15, and we will go to matrix 1, and we will make sure that's post fader. Output 16, we are going to go to matrix 2, and that is also post fader. And then 14 is going to be matrix 3 for our subs. Next thing that we'll want to do, since we're in this tab already, is we're going to assign the 5 different monitors. So we'll scroll up and just make sure that these are correct. So output 1 is going to be our powered monitor 1 off of mixbus 1 post fader. Number 2 is going to be a powered monitor 2, also post fader, mixbus 2. 3 is mixbus 3 post fader. 4 mixbus 4 post fader. 5 mixbus 5 post fader. And this right here is where the output is pulling from. It doesn't matter how this is configured, if this is a pre-fader or a post-fader, but what matters is that this is post-fader, because then you can use this as your overall volume for this specific monitor. So now we have all 5 of our monitors outputting through 1 through 5, and then our subs and mains outputting through 14 through 16. So let's go back to the matrix section and assign our crossover. So going to the EQ tab, we can go to mode, and with the mode, we can select our different crossover frequencies. On the matrix section and the mix buses, there are 6 bands of EQ that you can adjust. On the matrix section, we can use the number 1 and number 6 for a crossover. And what it does is it takes 1 and 2 and makes that just 1. So then you'll have 1, 3, 4, 5, 6 if you're just doing the low end. And then if you're also doing the high end, it'll take away 5. So then you'll have 6, 4, 3, 2, and 1 if you're just doing it on the high side. So I'll show you it. It's a little bit confusing to explain right now. So we're going to go ahead and rotate this until we get to the type of filter that we want. And so we're going to do the LR24, which is the Lynx Riley, pronouncing it wrong anyway, and it's 24 dB per octave. And then we would also be doing that very similar crossover frequency and filter on the subs, but on the opposite side. So you can see when I moved this to one of the crossover that this band disappeared. Very good. So put it to LR24, and then we're going to go press frequency and take this up to about 90. So in this case, it's going to be 91.4. Sounds like an FM radio station, except it's 0.4. So because these two are linked, whatever you do to one side happens to be the same as the other side. So now we're going to go ahead and go to matrix 3, and we're going to look at our number 6. We're going to put this all the way up to LR24. And then we're also going to go on the low end. I always like to roll off a little bit of the lows just to retain most of the information for what we want it to be at. So with the low side, I like to use a Butterworth 24 on the low end. So now we're going to go ahead and press frequency, and we're going to take this down. Most of the stuff rolls off, especially on these subwoofers. They don't really go past much 40, so we're going to go ahead and place that right at 40. And then our high end, we are going to take this back down to 91.4. And so now we can see that that is the coverage of our subwoofer, and then if we click over here, this is going to be the coverage for the mains. So you can kind of see that where that overlaps. And the nice thing about the LR24 is it does not boost in the crossover frequency. If you're using a Butterworth filter, you would need to lower the frequency just a little bit on the low side to not have a little bit of a boost here. And to look that up, just go Google it, and you can read all about that. So now that we have our matrix 1, 2, and 3 all set up with that, we want to see where this is pulling from. And so everything from the groups is going to be going to our left-right bus. So this is our master fader, obviously. So the left-right is the last thing that everything sees before it goes to the matrix. You can send from the mix buses, but in our case, we are wanting the mix buses to go to the left-right fader, and then the left-right fader to go to the matrix. So to set that up, we'll go ahead and click LR, and we'll press sends. And so I've already done it here, but we can take this and turn this up. And on the board, you have a lot better control over this. You can actually see where it is. In our case, we're just going to put it like that for now. So we are raising the volume of the left-right bus into matrix 1 and 2. And then also we're raising it into 3 as well. So now that we have assigned the matrix section pulling off the left-right, we want to go ahead and raise these up. So we will have our left-right up at 0, matrix 1 and 2 up at 0, and our subwoofer at unity as well. And we have already assigned our monitors, so we'll go ahead and turn these up to unity as well. Now we don't have anything assigned into these quite yet, and you guys can watch my other videos on using the Sense-On fader on how to get the channels into the monitors. And now we need to go ahead and get all of the instruments and vocals and drums into these subgroups. And so these are linked. And so let's go ahead and start getting the instruments into this. And so the easiest way to link the instruments into these subgroups is using the Home tab on the channels. You can see quite a bit of information on this, and you can edit everything from this screen pretty much. So with our channel 1, this is going to be all of our vocals. And I remember that our vocals are on bus 7 and 8, and we can verify that by using the right-hand side of the board. So we can see that 7 and 8 is our vocal. So all we have to do is click one of the channels, and then click this right here, 7 and 8. And you notice that both of those turned orange. Whatever is orange means it's being routed into that. And so since we are having our vocal mics go into an audio group here, and then to our left-right fader, we want to deselect this channel from the left-right. So we do not want this channel to go to the left-right before it goes to the subgroups. We want to have all these channels going to the subgroups first, so we can apply a little bit of global either compression or equalization, that sort of thing, before it goes to the left-right. So then we are going to go on to channel 2, unselect it from the left-right, add it to 7 and 8, 3, 4, 5. Very good. Now we have all of our instruments. So we have our keyboards, guitars, and bass all going into 9 and 10. Now, one way to add more groups is to have the band use the Behringer P16s. It's a good way to kind of free up some of your mix buses to use elsewhere. The other way that you could do it is having another board. So say you're a larger church and you have a lot of in-ear mixes. By having a second board, you can have a monitor console, and you can link these through the AES 50 on the back of it. And so you can use one X32 just for the monitors and one X32 for the house. And then you can use all of your 16 buses at the front of house for mixing, and then all 16 mix buses at the monitors for actually doing the monitor work. And then we have our drums. This is going to be going into 11 and 12. It's a lot of... Hey, you can do this while sitting on the couch watching your favorite TV show. All right. And that's the last one. So now that we have all these channels linked into those groups, I'll want to go ahead and raise the volume of these up to unity. If I don't raise the volume on these to unity, no audio will pass through the subgroups to the left-right fader. Now you can control volume of the global groups by using these faders here, and you can also adjust the volume with the DCAs to the specific instruments. And the reason that we're using the DCAs, what's nice is these are remote controls to these faders. So this is a remote control to these three faders. The yellow one, DCA3, is a remote control to the yellow faders here. But all of these instruments are all going into the bus 9 and 10. And so you can control the volume of all of the instruments here, but then over here we can do a little bit more fine-tuning of that mix. Now the last thing that they wanted me to have set up is the reverb. And they have the two reverbs. They have the vocal reverb here, and we're going to assign this by using the Sense on Fader button, and I'd suggest taking a look at my other videos on the Sense on Fader, which explains it in a lot more detail than I'm going to right now. But we have our 5 vocal mics that we're wanting to add into the vocal reverb. And then we also have our instrument reverb. And we'll want a lot of acoustic guitar in that. Some pretty good electric guitar. Not too much keys because we don't want to muddy it too much. No bass. And then the overheads. And a little bit of drums. There you go. So now we have these assigned for the vocal reverb and the instrument reverb. So we'll go ahead and turn these up to Unity now that we have those assigned. And then in the effects section, we'll want to have our bus 13 and 14, which is our vocal reverb and instrument reverb, as a reverb. So make sure you go in here and select either a plate reverb or a vintage or something, hall, any type of reverb that you're wanting. We'll go ahead and do a plate and a vintage. So FX1 here pulls from bus 13, but then returns on FX1 L&R, which is on our aux-in FX return. So FX1 L and R is right here. These are a linked thing, so we have our left and our right. So anything that's going into the effects rack 1 is returned right here, and then effects rack 2 is returned on effects 2 left and right. So since we don't have anything going in 3 and 4, I'm going to go ahead and mute these and turn them down. And we can have these assigned there. We're going to go ahead and mute them for now. And the cool thing is we have our user-defined section over here, so we can assign our different mutes for the reverb and whatnot on this side of the board. So say your band has reverb on the vocals whenever they're singing, but then in between songs they want to talk to the crowd. Usually reverb is really bad on spoken word, so we'd want to go ahead and mute that for when someone is talking. So we have all of the boards set up now. We have all of our vocal mics here, our keyboards. Everything is going into the different groups, and all these groups are then going to the left-right fader. And then the left-right fader is feeding our matrix section here. And then our matrix section is then going out through the routing into output 15 and 16. And then our subwoofers are coming off of 14. And then our monitors are going on 1 through 5. So we have successfully set up this board to the point where we can now take this, save this scene onto a USB drive, load it into the console, and then import that scene. And then we are ready to go and turn up our instruments for for our show. Now, some of you guys like using an aux-fed subwoofer, and I have done this a lot with analog consoles. I do find it a little bit clumsy on the X32 just because you have to go in a sends on fader or use the sends knobs up top. You can keep things out of the subwoofers using the low cut just as easily as you would be able to raise a volume pot for an aux-fed sub. So when we're doing it this way, where we have our matrix and our system processor or the X32 applying that crossover for the subwoofers, we'll want to keep the vocals and certain instruments out of the subwoofer so they don't rumble it. So when we have our vocal microphones, we will want to go in and apply a low cut. And all we have to do is click low cut, and then we remember that our crossover frequency was at 91. So one thing, one little tidbit, is have this up a little bit higher than the crossover frequency, like 100 hertz or 110. I'm just going to put this at 110, and that is going to pretty much guarantee that there's not going to be any information or very little information coming out of the subwoofers from this channel. And we can verify that by looking here. And we can see that our 91 is right here, and that is -9 dB here. So that's significantly lower than everything else. If you wanted to have it cut out a little bit more, we can raise this low cut just a little bit. But on all the channels, we'll want to go ahead and apply that, at least the channels that we want to keep out of the subwoofers. Channels that we wouldn't want to keep out of the subwoofers are any keyboards that are going to be nice and low-end, heavy. Kick drum, obviously, we would keep in the subwoofers. Bass guitar, electric guitar we don't really need to have in the subwoofers unless you're doing like some heavy, crazy death metal and really like crazy low end. Acoustic guitar, definitely we do not want in the subwoofers. Rhythm guitar, I'm going to go ahead and take out, and the lead guitar I'm going to take out as well. And you can adjust this to how you want it to sound, of course. Always trust your ears. And using a live RTA is always a nice tool, so you can see kind of what is actually happening in the mix. Something like True RTA is a pretty cheap program that you can get, but the best one would be Smart by Rational Acoustics. That's a really good program to be using to kind of have a visual sense of what's happening in the room. So if you guys have any questions, feel free to post below. This was a really quick kind of run through on setting up the board using the subgroups and the matrix section with the crossovers to send out to your system. So thank you very much, and I hope you guys enjoyed the video.